This is the final of the three-part series in which I recap the difficult journey that Michael Usher and his wife Mariantonietta undertook across the Sahara Desert. On 24 December, that is to say on Christmas Eve, they got to a place called Fachi and they set up camp. The couple did not regret embarking on this journey. They would rather be here together chasing a dream than elsewhere. They had Udungu, their Tuareg guide. Michael Usher's wife gave her husband Christmas gifts: a big stocking, biscuits, dates, a new toothbrush, a very small notebook, a sugar cone, a piece of soap. All this she managed to buy from Timbuktu. Then there was the barrier of war in Chad. This threatened to abort their mission. It was hot and their 5 camels were hungry. As if to add salt to injury, to compound their crisis, there was no grazing. Their feet were cracked and bleeding. Michael's feet were blistered, and Mariantonietta's ankle was swollen from the previous fall. It meant that they had to balance walking and riding for 12 hours a day. They rode and then rested. Rest was unimaginable. They rode for 12 hours a day with the threat of war between Chad and Libya. Worry overwhelmed them so much that the journey became a nightmare. Could they turn back now? If they did, it would have been an exercise in futility. So they risked it and surged on. It was a sickening moment in their life. They crossed from Niger into Chad without any challenges. They had to get to the capital, N'Djamena, in order to get visas into Sudan. Trouble started on the way, however. They were stopped several times, searched, threatened, and accused of being Libyans. They were detained and forced to pay, let go, and then detained again. It was, according to Usher, a cat and mouse game. The population was taking advantage of the war to commit atrocities. It was survival of the crooked. The party had no protection whatsoever. They, however, remained resolute to go on with their plan. In some cases, they refused to pay bribes or surrender their camels or be separated. That was the worst case scenario never imagined. On the way, they were accosted by soldiers, Chadian soldiers, and rudely searched. They had the arduous task of having to reload their items. Thereafter, they set off for N'Djamena, where they arrived at sunset. They were booked into a hotel room which had no furniture, just a mattress on the floor, and their door was closed from outside. They were taken to the security headquarters on the following day, where they sat for 8 hours and no one called or talked to them. Eventually, they were just handed a piece of paper from the Interior Ministry permitting them to cross the wall of Chad. They were finally free to go. They bade goodbye to their guide and decided not to take another one. That night, the two suddenly felt fearful. They had been warned about wild beasts in the desert. They were 1,000 kilometers away from the Sudanese border. Once more, Usher was glad he had brought his wife. She worked with the determination he had never thought possible, leading the camels, walking as long as he did, lifting their heavy provision sacks and jerrycans. They marched for 12 hours, covering 50 kilometers on a daily basis. They were always on their feet before dawn. They were like people destined for the promised land, the Sudan. This journey was a test of character, but they passed it with flying colors. One night, hyenas came to their camp. It was a frightening experience. The couple banged pots and plates to scare them off. They also kept the fire burning until dawn. This happened again on the second night. Usher fired a flare to scare the hyenas away. According to some Arab boys that they met on the way, hyenas attacked human beings and camels, and there were big ones in the desert. Other problems also emerged. They couldn't sleep and they had to build a shelter. They had to take turns to sleep and watch in spite of their exhaustion. On February 27, they arrived at a water pool. They had covered over 5,000 kilometers, and on inquiring, they were told that they were in the Sudan. They were relieved. A month later, they got to a camp of the nomadic Kababish Arabs. Asha had previously lived among them. The welcome was out of this world. They offloaded the travelers' luggage and took care of the camels' provisions. At a place called Tomwad Hassan, they were welcomed with warmth and dignity, even by the sheikh himself. A sheep was slaughtered in their honor. It was like a party, and the peace that they experienced was indescribable. From this place, there was but one well called Abu Tabara, which was hidden among the rocks. This time they had to take a guide, and his name was Adam. On 12 April, they thought they had arrived at Abu Tabara, but Adam was wrong. Panic began to set in, as Adam himself admitted he was not sure where it was. Asha was angry and insisted if they failed to find the well, they would have to trek back. His wife was devastated. They were close, and then this was happening. However, they had each other and they had no regrets. It was still possible. They reasoned. They did not despair. One day at midday, they had been walking since dawn without drinking. Asha's mouth was dry, and he declared that they had to go back. Just as Adam reluctantly turned the camel so that they could go back, Mariantonietta shouted, "There it is." A man was drawing water from the invisible well. Their relief was immeasurable. Asha described the water they got from the man as the most delicious water he had ever tasted. He also drenched himself and his clothes. Then a sandstorm struck. This, according to Michael, was the last battle they had to win. When they emerged out of the sandstorm, Adam announced that that was where the desert ended. There was a line of green trees where none should have been. There was also a silver of water. The small town of Ed Deba materialized almost out of the blue. It was unbelievable that they had reached the Nile. The Nile River was cool, silent, grey, and ancient. The camels walked into the water, and the sound of their drinking filled the air. This was what they had anticipated for all the months. The couple held their hands and looked with wonder at the mighty river. They had each other. Asha took off the sandals that he had bought in Chingueta 256 days previously. They had walked across the greatest desert on earth. He just looked at the sandals and threw them into the river. They had done it. Their relief was without equal. It was a journey that had almost sapped their energy, but one whose fruits they could never describe in words.